Okay, so you've probably seen this popping up everywhere online, right?
Right.
In health groups too. Is rosemary oil really a natural match for minoxidil when it comes to hair loss? It's a pretty bold claim, definitely grabbing attention. So today we're going to dive deep into the science behind it. We've got the research, the studies. We're going to figure out what the data actually tells us.
Exactly. Our goal here is to take a really critical look at the evidence, especially the key 2015 study by Panahi and his team. We need to understand what it truly shows for androgenetic alopecia AGA and, maybe more importantly, what it doesn't show. We'll look at how they supposedly work, the mechanisms, and weigh up all the clinical findings to give you the real picture.
All right, let's unpack that main study then. Panahi, 2015. It was 6 months long, randomized, 100 men involved. And they compared a rosemary oil lotion against a 2% minoxidil solution.
Yeah.
The big takeaway, the headline, was that after 6 months, both groups saw a significant jump in hair count compared to when they started. And crucially, there was no statistical difference between the rosemary oil and the minoxidil groups. Plus, people seemed to tolerate the rosemary oil better, less scalp itching. On the surface, that sounds like a pretty clear win for rosemary, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, and that's usually where the story stops in a lot of places. But this is where it gets really interesting, I think. The absolutely critical detail, the one that often gets glossed over, is that they compared rosemary oil to 2% minoxidil.
2%, not the 5%.
Exactly, not the 5% minoxidil, which is, the standard recommendation for men, and is known to be quite a bit more effective. So that comparison fundamentally reframes the whole conclusion. It's like comparing rosemary to a, let's say, less potent version of the standard treatment.
Okay, that's a huge point. So what does this mean for you, the listener, then? That significant increase in hair count? It's actually pretty modest if you look closely at the numbers. Around 5.5% increase for rosemary oil.
And only about 1.7% for the 2% minoxidil over those 6 months.
Right. So statistically significant doesn't always mean you're going to, see a massive difference in the mirror. Makes you wonder how many articles missed that 2% detail.
It does. And then there's the how they work. Minoxidil is FDA-approved. It's a growth stimulant. Technically, it's a potassium channel opener. Basically, it helps widen the tiny blood vessels around the follicles, getting more blood flow, more oxygen, and it keeps hair in the growth phase longer. But here's the key thing. Minoxidil doesn't block DHT. It doesn't tackle the main hormone driving AGA.
Okay, so minoxidil is boosting growth.
Yeah.
But rosemary oil, that seems different. It's a plant extract, much more complex. And the early research, the preclinical stuff, suggests it might actually work as a natural DHT inhibitor, meaning it could block that enzyme, 5-alpha reductase. It's kind of like how prescription finasteride works. So it might be going after the hormonal root cause of the hair loss. Is that fair to say?
That's the hypothesis based on the preclinical data, yes.
Yeah.
It seems to have this multi-pronged thing going on, maybe blocking DHT, maybe enhancing circulation too, maybe some anti-inflammatory effects.
It's almost like apples and oranges. Minoxidil is helping the hair grow, like you said, maybe like fertilizer. But rosemary oil might be trying to stop what's causing the hair loss in the first place, like dealing with the weeds.
That's a decent analogy, yeah. They're working on potentially very different pathways, which naturally leads to the question, could they work together? If one stimulates growth and the other tackles the hormone, maybe they're complementary.
Interesting thought. And when we look at the bigger picture of evidence, well, minoxidil has decades behind it, right? Huge studies, placebo-controlled trials. It's established. It's the gold standard for a reason.
Absolutely. Extensive documentation.
Rosemary oil, on the other hand, the clinical evidence is still pretty young, promising, yes, there was another placebo-controlled trial in 2024 showing it helped. But really only that one head-to-head study we discussed, and that was against the weaker minoxidil.
And let's touch on side effects again. That 2015 study showed less itching with rosemary compared to the minoxidil solution. But often it's an ingredient called propylene glycol in the liquid minoxidil that causes that irritation for a lot of people.
Ah, right.
The minoxidil foam formulations usually don't have propylene glycol. They tend to be much better tolerated. So that side effect difference might not be as big when you compare rosemary oil to the minoxidil foam.
Okay, foam is better tolerated. Got it. But the original study did still find rosemary was better tolerated than the liquid they used. So for someone who just really can't handle minoxidil, maybe even the foam irritates them, or they just want a purely natural approach, doesn't that make rosemary oil a pretty useful standalone natural option right there, even acknowledging the strength difference with 5% minoxidil?
Oh, absolutely. For those specific situations, it definitely offers a valuable alternative. That's a key point for many listeners, I'm sure.
So wrapping this up, while rosemary oil is definitely interesting, it looks promising. especially if scalp sensitivity is a big issue for you. Claiming it's as effective as Minoxidil based on current evidence, that seems like, well, an oversimplification.
It is. Minoxidil, particularly that 5% foam, still holds the top spot based on the sheer volume and quality of evidence. It remains the gold standard.
But this deep dive really shows they aren't just simple substitutes, are they?
Not at all. Which leads back to that idea. Maybe they aren't substitutes, maybe they're partners. Imagine this. A future trial, properly designed. Standardized rosemary oil extract versus 5% minoxidil foam, and a placebo group, of course. And maybe a fourth group, using both rosemary oil and 5% minoxidil foam together.
Ah, a combination arm.
Exactly. What kind of synergistic effects might we see then? Could they boost each other? Now that's a question worth exploring. Something for you to maybe mull over for your own next deep dive.